So when we talk about doing a lab, it's or demoing or talking about a feature or functionality, this is something that's really important for people because they're using it in the field, not just because we think, well, it's really important from a sales perspective that you really understand the scalability numbers. No, you need to know how to do this. So we're really looking, especially with the ability to relaunch at the professional level and what we're going to be doing at the enterprise level. This is roll your sleeves up, deep dive, get in there and work with the capabilities that come with new generations of hardware, as well as, complementary to the new standards that are coming out.
If you click this, right, you can hit migrate access point, and the access point will move from the Meraki dashboard onto, let's say, an on-prem controller. Now, when I say move on to an on-prem controller, all the stuff you know today from your discovery, your option 43s, your DNSs, all that, that's still valid. The moment you hit migrate, all of that process kicks off. So you don't have to relearn everything.
Hey everyone, David Bommel back with a bunch of really special guests. Guys, welcome. Could you quickly introduce yourselves and tell us about this big announcement from Cisco?
Hi everyone, my name is Mubasher Nawaz. I'm the certification portfolio manager responsible for all the certifications from entry to expert level.
Andrew Richter, I'm with Learning with Cisco, and I work on our wireless certification training courses.
Hey everybody. Hey David. Nick Swiatecki. I'm a product manager in the Cisco Wireless business unit, so I deal with our access points and controllers and features.
So really happy to hear that, because we've got people from learning and certification as well as people from the business unit. So we're going to get real world, and we're going to have a demo in this video just for everyone who's watching. So use the timestamps below if you're only interested in seeing a demo about something about wireless, or if you want to know about the cert, then just use the relevant timestamps below. Okay, guys. So big question: why this cert? Why now?
According to Gartner's 2025 strategic roadmap for enterprise networking, enterprises are moving towards wireless LAN infrastructure that seamlessly integrate private and public cellular networks, including 5G, alongside the Wi-Fi technologies. The report highlights accelerated adoption of Wi-Fi 7 for its improved coverage, lower latency, greater capacity, reduced interference. Wi-Fi 7 is expected to offer speeds up to 40 gigabits per second and features time-sensitive networking to further minimize latency and congestion. Also, David, personally, at every Cisco Live event and our community meetups that I have attended, a recurring question has been, what are we doing for the wireless community and how are we addressing their needs? So historically, we responded by offering wireless concentration exams in the enterprise certification domain. However, David, the time has now come to provide this community with a dedicated certification track spanning from entry level to expert. To that end, Cisco is introducing a new wireless certification track, reaffirming our commitment to modern wireless technologies. This track features both professional and expert level certifications designed to develop practical skills in designing, deploying, and managing advanced wireless networks. We are launching a new core exam alongside the existing wireless concentration exams, which were previously part of the enterprise track. Additionally, we are also updating our CCIE wireless practical exam to now incorporate Cisco Meraki, Wi-Fi 6, and Wi-Fi 7 technologies.
Well, that's great. So at the moment, is there a CCNA wireless?
So there is no CCNA wireless, but we are recommending a training course, which is our foundational training for the wireless, to be as a recommended training to take before you step into the professional level exams that we are offering.
Okay, so I should do like CCNA and then this beginning training, and then I can go and do CCNP wireless. Is that correct?
That is correct. Although there is no requirement to do CCNA before that, but we highly recommend doing it before you step into the CCNP wireless certification track that we are offering.
The idea with that is that we really want the professional level certification to be professional level. So there's fundamental foundational elements of wireless, how RF works, the physics behind it, antennas, things like that. We want people to be comfortable with that, so then we can really concentrate on that professional level content, much deeper dive around those elements that are really critical, and really make it a professional level, what would be in line with CCNP. So we want people to go into whether they're going into the exam or they're going through our training course first, we want them to be prepared with those foundations so that way they get the most out of the experience.
So tell me, is this taken with Encore, or what exams do I have to take to become CCNP wireless certified?
So, David, we are introducing a new core exam, which is going to be WLSCOR. We did not have that in our portfolio before. It's going to be launched on March 19th, 2026. So, first date to test would be on March 19th. Blueprint is already available. I highly recommend you to go ahead, have a look at that. Our CCNP wireless certification is going to consist of the core exam, the new core exam. We already had the wireless design and wireless implement, which was previously part of the enterprise. We are moving it down to our wireless track itself. So dedicated wireless track for our wireless community. The CCNP wireless now is going to focus on our fundamentals. It's going to focus on our 802.11 standards, client connectivity, wireless monitoring, automation and AI, advanced solutions like Flex Connect, QS, multicast, security, wireless design, site service. So all of these is going to be part of our CCNP wireless certification. So you do 1+1, just standard as at our professional level. So you do your core exam and then you choose between design and implement, whichever one you want to take. And if you pass one of the concentration exams with the core, you get your CCNP wireless certification.
What about CCIE? So we've kind of spoken a little bit about CCNP, but how does it affect CCIE?
So CCIE are one of the industry's most advanced validation exams for expert level skills. And the same thing applies for the CCIE Enterprise Wireless Networking that we had. It's an 8-hour practical exam. It covers planning, designing, deployment, operation, and optimization of complex wireless networks. It's going to include now Wi-Fi 6. It's going to include Wi-Fi 7. It's going to include Meraki technologies as well. What's happening is the CCIE Enterprise Wireless will be rebranded or renamed to CCIE Wireless now. Wireless topics are going to be updated into it. So if you are somebody who's preparing for it right now, I would recommend looking at the topics that are already available for CCIE Wireless. The new exam is going to be live on March 19th onwards. So if you are somebody preparing for the current exam, you still have time till March 18th, 2026 to appear in that exam.
I'm glad you're doing that because it's always a concern when Cisco change the exams, right? Like, now, which one am I going to take? So both of these exams, March next year, right?
That is correct. So your CCNP wireless exam and your CCIE wireless certification exam is going to go live on March 19th. So if you are somebody in transition right now who has appeared in one of the concentration exams in past, you would be somebody who's going to appear in the core exam, let's say after March 19th, then I would recommend taking wireless core if you are planning to take your CCIE in the wireless exam.
Nick, so I'm assuming you've done some of these certs in the past, right? So you've got some of the Wi-Fi or wireless certifications. So question is, how does it affect someone like you or others in the industry who have done like some of the old stuff, if you like? How does this new, change affect what you've done?
Yeah, I think we can kind of play this live, right? Like Dr. Mubasher, like I have the current wireless CCNP level concentration exam. So, Mubasher, let's talk about my case. What happens to me
exactly
going forward when this new exam kind of launches?
That's an excellent question, Nicholas. So we wanted to make sure that we address the community who has already achieved one of the concentration exam, whether it's design or implement wireless one. If you are somebody who has already passed that exam and you want to achieve CCNP wireless, you can do your wireless core exam from March 19th onwards, and you will be awarded and recognized as a CCNP wireless certified candidate. This is something that we wanted to make sure that we take care of during this process. One of the things, David, I want to highlight is that a lot of changes that we are making is something that what we are listening from our community feedback, what our community is telling us that they need and how to address this thing. In past, CCIE wireless used to be a very daunting task because NCORE was such a huge exam that you had to pass before you could actually appear in your CCIE wireless exam. So now we are giving an opportunity to our candidates that you can go and do your wireless core, and then you can go and attempt your CCIE wireless exam. So that's a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for people like Nicholas. So if they want to go and do CCIE wireless in the future, they can go do wireless core and appear in their exam. It's a win-win for NCORE people as well, because they now don't have to study for wireless questions anymore. So it's a win-win for everybody over here.
Yeah, I like that. Because, I mean, if you're a Wi-Fi person, you don't necessarily want to learn advanced BGP, right?
Exactly. Or SD-WAN or something else like that, right? So you don't want to learn those things. You want to focus on your domain. This is really important that this community, we wanted to address their questions. And that's one of the reasons we are making this change, to address all the concerns that were brought to us by wireless community out there.
I think an important point to make also on when we look at the transition, when the March 19th date hits, we have the current content in our courses and the exams for our implementation and our design. We're going to be renaming those courses. We're going to be renaming the exams. They're going to be renumbered. The content and the blueprints are not changing. So if someone's in the process of preparing for their wireless implementation or their design course, that's not going to change. Just after March 19th, they're going to need to make sure that they're aware that the test numbers have changed, their exam registration. If they do it after the 19th or after the 19th onwards, it's going to be a different name and different number. Exact same course, exact same content. So someone who's midstream right now, we're doing everything to make sure that everything's fine. Down the road, once we're done with releasing the wireless core and releasing that, and we'll make adjustments later to the implement and the design to make sure they're staying as current as possible to technologies, industry trends, really what the learners and ultimately our customers need to be able to understand and do with their wireless networks. We'll, through our normal process, be updating those. But during this transition time, other than names and numbers changing, no content shift.
So if I did let's say I did the implementation exam now, that would be a credit to the new wireless certification. Is that correct?
Yes, because when you take the design or the implement course, they're good for 3 years from the specialist designation. If you take your wireless core and you have one of the wireless specializations within that original 3-year window, meaning you haven't recerted it, but just within that original, you've had it for less than 3 years, you will get that. You will get the CCNP wireless. If you've done the recert, so you pass 3 years on your specialist exam, at that point, no, you will need to retake whether it's your implementation or your design course to get that CCNP designation.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good point that Andrew has brought up. And if you want to look at the more details of what actually is in design, what's in implement, what's in the core exam, what's changing in the NCore exam for that matter, I would highly recommend going to our Cisco certification Cert roadmap page. It has all the blueprints available for you. Have a look at it, and you can easily see what's changing from one blueprint version to the other blueprint version.
Okay, guys, I'm always a bit slow, right? So can you summarize for me, are there 3 exams, but I only need 2 to become CCNP Wireless? Is that right? Or how does it work?
So that is correct. The formula is still same. It's 1 + 1. So you do your core exam and you do one of the concentration exams. And this applies to all of our portfolio. So whether it's enterprise, security, wireless, collaboration, it's at professional level, we only required 1 + 1. So you do your core exam and you do any one of the concentration exams within that track, and you get your CCNP wireless. So currently we are offering 3 exams. So it's wireless core, and we have the design, wireless design, and the wireless implement exam that we are offering. So if you do the core and then you have a choice to do design or implement, either combinations with the core exam is going to earn you a CCNP wireless certification.
But the core is not available at the time of this recording, right? Is that only available in March of next year? Did I understand that right?
That is correct, David. So core is going to be available from March 19th onwards. But if you pass your concentration exam today and you pass your core exam on March 19th or afterwards, you still earn a CCNP wireless certification.
Okay, so another question. If I did a say, wireless implementation and the on-call cert tomorrow, for argument's sake, then I become a CCNP enterprise. Is that
enterprise. Right? That is correct. And you can double dip that concentration by doing a wireless core in future and get your CCNP wireless as well. So it's going to be recognized at both the places.
Okay, great. So so if I'm a Wi-Fi or wireless type person, it makes sense to do like implementation or design today, get my CCNP enterprise, and then get my CCNP wireless just by doing the new core exam. Correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Is there any lab element in the new core? Just as somebody who's like, old school cert guy, any kind of lab elements? Maybe that's worth kind of.
Yeah, I'll touch on that. Yeah. when it comes to the actual, because we're in the process of building the WLSCOR course, and part of that is obviously we're making sure that we're very current on the technology. Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 6E, 6 gigahertz, but a lot of the new features that have come in with Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 that really optimize wireless and increase performance. And a critical element to that is that hands-on lab piece. So it's going to be a combination of hands-on in labs as well as lab videos, because there are certain technologies and certain elements that are very difficult to work on in a lab with wireless because of the nature of RF or the scalability of a very large enterprise network and some of the capabilities that you really don't see until you have a very large, much larger or very large footprint within the network. So what we're going to do with those, instead of what we've done in the past sometimes with simulations, is we're focusing more on doing walkthrough videos where people will then be able to take those videos and follow through them, whether it's in their own demo environment, their own lab environment, leveraging things like Cisco modeling labs to actually replicate those labs on their own to continue to do that work and reinforce it over and over again, is to have that hands-on element. And the nature of wireless, say compared to routing and switching and security, it's just very difficult to do certain elements of it hands-on because you don't have the clients, you don't have the actual ability to have that RF traffic without having an extremely complex setup with isolation chambers and other things with access points. So it's a challenge for us that are building the course, but we're also nerds at heart when it comes to RF and wireless and everything here. So we're going to make that lab experience the best possible. The other element, and part of the reason why I asked Nick to be here today, is in the past feedback we've received on a lot of our training courses, and coming from the more of the training side, but having been a field engineer at heart and through my career with Cisco, is it's great that we do these exams and these courses, but I don't need to know product names and product numbers or
exactly
on this model versus this model. If I'm designing a network for a customer, I'm going to go to cisco.com. I'm going to get the latest, greatest information. I don't need that to be on an exam. Give me meat. So what we've done is we've really tightened up our partnership with both the business units, why we have Nick here today, as well as working with TAC and our other engineers around what are we seeing real world in networks from customers? What are the problems they're having? What are the challenges? What, from a field engineer perspective, what are they trying to accomplish with their networks? And that's really how we're focusing the development of the courses. So when we talk about doing a lab, it's or demoing or talking about a feature or functionality, this is something that's really important for people because they're using it in the field, not just because we think, well, it's really important from a sales perspective that you really understand the scalability numbers. No, you need to know how to do this. So we're really looking, especially with the ability to relaunch at the professional level and what we're going to be doing at the enterprise level. This is roll your sleeves up, deep dive, get in there and work with the capabilities that come with new generations of hardware, as well as, complementary to the new standards that are coming out.
So one thing to add from exams perspective, we do have lablets in the exams. So I would highly recommend everybody to do those labs that Andrew is referring to, because you might see a lablet in your core exam or your design or your implement exam. But if you have practiced with those labs in our training, you will be a lot more comfortable when attempting those lablet questions in the exam itself.
Yeah, I was just going to hit you with some nasty questions, right? So it's two parts to this. The training and the lab part, like what I have to do to study to pass, but also the exam questions. So lablets, I'm assuming that's like a simulation type thing. Is that what it is?
That is correct. So it's a simulation that runs within the exam. We do have, I'll share a link with you, David, on the page where it explains what lablets are and everything. And then maybe we can post that. So those are simulations that run in the exam, and you have to test them, and you have to configure them, troubleshoot them, and see and achieve the required result out of it.
So we've got labs or simulation, lablets. Do you have is it the typical stuff like multiple choice, single answer, multiple choice, multiple answer, that kind of setup?
That is correct. So what we call it is multiple choice XA. So multiple choice single answer, multiple answers, whatever the format is. Yes, they will be in the exam. Drag and drop is a possibility. So all these different types of questions you should be expecting in your exam.
Andrew, you were talking about labs, right? So you mentioned CML. CML, how does that help me? Do I need to buy access points? How do I actually prepare for this? Because I know you've mentioned it can be complicated with Wi-Fi.
Right. Well, with CML, there's a few options we can do here. First of all, there's the free version of CML that's available, limited to 5 devices. We have the wireless controller is available within CML. So for being used to the interface and how to go through and configure, and there's a significant amount of the wireless network that can be configured via CML without an access point even attached. You can basically define the majority of your wireless network without even having an access point connected. CML does have the ability to bridge to an external access point. So if you do have an access point, you will be able to physically connect it in a small environment, personal lab, home lab, even an office environment type thing. Very workable solution. From a teaching a course perspective is when I talk about the ability to scale up when you now have 15 students and 30 access points in one small space. I mean, it really is kind of a non-starter. But from a personal prep, the aspect of the CML, that 5 device license is free. So you can work with that, and that will give you the ability to work through the majority of the lab topics. And again, that's why we're going to be focusing more on those topics where they're a little bit more difficult, potentially to have a hands-on lab. We'll be doing more of a lab videos, knowing that someone can get the real world step-by-step. This is what the walkthrough looks like, and I'll be able to use that and replicate that in my own offline environment. Make that, we're trying to figure out how we can make these, when we can't do it hands-on labs, how can we have the most benefit to the learner so they can replicate it, reinforce that learning to go about doing that. So that's really from the, and from, you mentioned, can't talk about the number of questions and things like that, but that's where it's really important. Anyone who's going after one of the certifications really needs to start by looking at the blueprint. What are the topics that are covered in the blueprint? What are those elements? What am I comfortable with? What am I not comfortable with? Of course, you're going to want to study top to bottom and go all the way through it, but there's going to be certain areas that, I'm going to need to spend a lot more time on that. And that's where you're also going to want to look at where can I do some hands-on exercises with that? We don't have anything to announce officially as being publicly available, but something that we're always working on from the Learning with Cisco side is how can we put additional resources out there, tutorials, other topics. Those will all be beneficial to the learner who's going after this from a professional level and an expert level. I also approach it personally from the perspective of it's not just about getting the certification. But for me personally, a certification is that marker of I've learned the information, I can apply this, I can do this in my daily work. Certification is that's that achievement of I can do this. We don't design our exams to just be a rubber stamp. We also don't develop our course content of take the course, I'm going to pass the test. There's a lot more in the course than there is on the exam. We're really about developing the professional skill level. And then there's the certification in the exam to validate that knowledge level. It's not a teaching to the test.
Just kind of in terms of, I was going to say, accessibility to the technology. And, as somebody who first started studying for their CCIE when it was like AROS days, now, the virtual controllers, as Andrew mentioned, I think we actually now bundle it with CML. If not, it's coming very soon that like the 9800 images in CML, right? Our 9800 controllers run virtually on all the hypervisors out there. Even public cloud, like you can, if you clicked, you can spin up a wireless LAN controller in Amazon and get going with that in AWS, right? So it's never been easier to get your hands on a controller in the different form factors. And something we've been, of course, partnering with our learning group on is like, how do we make sure that those capabilities are available for folks that need to learn? So I'd say it's never been easier to get your hands on, this technology out there, which is something we're pretty proud of.
We've got like the controller that you've just mentioned. We've got like Cisco access points. We've got Meraki. In the bad old days, we used to, if I'm in the UK, you in the US, I had to buy a specific access point for the UK. And then if I had a client in the US, I had to buy a different access point. What is Cisco doing to make that better, man?
Love the question. So the short version is, and we can actually demo that in a little bit here, is, starting Wi-Fi 6E, but truly Wi-Fi 7, we got rid of regulatory domains. So in our Wi-Fi 7 portfolio, there are no regulatory domains. We call this global use access points. When we say GUAP, or global use access point onboarding, GUAPO, quite a few times. So we got rid of regulatory domains. We also got rid of, this is a Meraki access point. This is a Catalyst access point. Every access point out of the box boots up and then decides, should I become a Meraki access point and connect to the cloud? Should I become, let's say, traditional controller-based access point, and, join a controller? And, we kind of soft introduced this with our 6E portfolio, but now with 7, it's fully there. Customers or lab takers, you can move your access points back and forth between the two stacks fully seamlessly. So if you're a learner out there, you get a Cisco Wi-Fi 7 access point, you can have that join the Meraki cloud one day, and I'll actually show you, click a button, and a minute later it's joined your wireless LAN controller. And again, because there's no regulatory domains, you don't have to worry about that. So we've really removed a lot of the barriers that kind of historically were there.
I'm glad to see that, like unification, because it feels like as a learner you have to know two separate worlds. So for the exam, I'm assuming I have to know something about Meraki, I have to know something about like the enterprise solution, or is it kind of like seamless?
That is correct, David. So because we want to make sure that there is a unification and our customers see us as one Cisco. So whether it's Meraki or any other solution that we have acquired over time, the exams are going to include everything in it. So everything, Meraki, Wi-Fi 6, or any other access point, it's going to be part of the exam.
It makes sense because it's a professional cert, right? So you've got to be prepared for the real world to deal with all of these scenarios. Okay, so Andrew, I'm going to hit you with this question, right? The blueprint, is there anything that stands out or anything that you really want to highlight in the new blueprints?
Well, the thing I really want to point out in the blueprint is how current it really is to what the wireless standards are. That has been feedback in the past that there has been a very big lag in the wireless content compared to where we are as an industry. Still talking Wi-Fi 5 when 6 and 6E was out, and just it always feeling like it was a little bit too retro to be nice about it. We are really putting the stake in the ground here. This is, and personally being responsible for a lot of the content around what we're doing with our courses, this is our stake in the ground of going forward from here. This is the restart of what we're doing with wireless, starting with WLSCOR. As we talked about down the road, the implement and the design will be updated through their normal cycles. And it's all about having, just being much more responsive to what's happening in the industry. What are the technologies that are driving what our customers are doing with the networks? Professional level, of course, there's going to be things from an architecture perspective and QoS and all those things you have to have from an RF perspective, but emphasis on what are we gaining from the new standards that are coming out? How do you work with them? It's great to understand what it is. Multi-link MLO is great. I know what it is. What does it look like? How do I turn it on? What are the benefits? I want to work with it if this is something that I'm going to bring into my enterprise deployment. Well, so we're really driving that, and you'll see it through the blueprint from the topics that are there. It's very much more that technology solution focus, not product. And that's I think that for me personally is the biggest shift. That really it's that underlying, because that's what our customers want. That's what our learners need. And it also makes it to where our certifications are valid for anyone, even if they work in mixed environments, or you work for a partner that does more than just Cisco Wireless. Not exactly sure why you would. We do have a complete package, but still, there's those oddballs, one or two out there. So we want everything that you learn to also be applicable to you being a professional level practitioner of wireless, regardless of what vendor you're working with. And again, that's really reflected in the blueprint of having that technology first, wireless solution first focus.
I love that. Products change, so it's pointless learning, just new names if the stuff's changing often anyway. Nick, let me ask you some real world questions, right? What are the biggest mistakes guys make? Like, have you got like some examples? Like, people always make this mistake, or this is the biggest best practice lesson that you can learn?
For wireless in general, right? The RF basics is still king, right? Bad RF, it will lead to a bad experience. That's just, at the end of the day, that's the case. I will say, apart from that, I'd say not actually using the material that's out there. We do have albeit sometimes a little daunting amount of documentation out there.
Yep.
A lot of the best practices, a lot of the best configs, they are documented out there. And I'll say then not using some of the tools that are available that are maybe lesser known, the wireless LAN config analyzer, where you can throw your config in, it'll tell you all the best practices. Getting to know some of those, you can say ancillary tools that really, boosts and make it a lot easier for folks to avoid these common mistakes, right? And again, the common ones, they're easy to detect, apart from bad RF.
Yeah. Nick, you got to give me some more tips and tricks, man. Stuff that you've seen in the real world. Any like wisdom that you can share with us?
I mean, apart from understand what WPA3 does for you and why that's 100% required as we go into Wi-Fi
I was going to ask you about
6E and
WPA3,
7.
but I wasn't sure if I should ask you that question, but go on, sorry.
Well, my buddy Stephen Orr is going to give me a hard time if I don't mention it, but that is actually one of the main things we're seeing right now is people want to move to the new technology, and they have to go back and kind of relearn WPA3, right? That was introduced a while back, but is now it's mandatory to kind of turn on Wi-Fi 7 to Wi-Fi 7. So that's an absolute a must. And then just the last little one, a little bit of a personal favorite as well. Go spend some time on APIs. There's a lot of functionality, for example, a Meraki dashboard that might not be exposed in the UI, but it is available through all the APIs, right? Controllers, there's a lot of things you can do with streaming telemetry. Quick 5-second example. We have accelerometers in our access points. You can detect the tilt of it. And for the ones that have integrated antennas, that's really important. The first place where that was available was through, streaming telemetry on the controllers, right? The first place that was available on dashboard was through the API. And then we build, UI and stuff, user experiences on top of that. So go spend time on APIs. It's really, really beneficial as a professional.
Yeah, so for real world, I mean, I'm assuming in the design course and stuff you guys are covering, like, should I use WPA3? Should I use Wi-Fi 7? Best practices, all that kind of stuff's covered in the courses, right?
Absolutely. That's, again, when we talk about, what we're coming out with the WLSCOR course and it being current, WPA3 critical. It went from you should know it, you should be using it with Wi-Fi 7 mandatory. So that is now considered, in my own personal opinion, that's baseline now. Anyone who's working at a professional level has to understand the ins and outs of WPA3, what's different, implementation of it, working with it, limitations from a client side, and all of that is the type of material that's covered in the course. Of course, from an exam perspective, it's something that's going to be there. But again, my emphasis is more on preparing our learners, preparing our customers to be ready for the exam. We also have people who take the courses and never sit for the exams. And so it really is, the emphasis is on the learning. WPA3, we touch on things like APIs. Again, all the aspects that are important to someone who's going to be working within the wireless environment.
I am going to deploy Wi-Fi tomorrow. I'm going to set power at the maximum, right? I'm going to set the country code to say Germany so I can get the highest power I can, even if I'm in the UK. And I'm going to mix WPA 3 and 2 together. Is that a good idea?
No.
Why?
The simple answer, no. I mean, there's so many aspects of that. From a regulatory requirement, that's a big no-no, extremely illegal. And then, from an RF perspective, maximum power, even in the regulatory domain that you're part of, you need to right size your RF coverage. It's part of making sure you get the optimal coverage, optimal client performance, and also an RF. We're all responsible for being good neighbors. Because if you're in a multi-level high rise and everybody does that, nobody's Wi-Fi is going to work. So it's all about, making sure you're doing the right thing, and not just because the cops are going to show up.
Just to add, we won't actually allow you to just set it for Germany. We do have some guardrails. There's not complete, free for all out there.
And mixing WPA 3 and 2, good idea today in an enterprise?
It may be not, depending on your clients and what you're doing, it may be necessary. Ideally, you want to go to the highest level of security, WPA 3, where you can. You may have certain clients, certain devices that don't have the ability to operate there. And if that's the case, then you still are going to want to be working with WPA2 Enterprise and doing everything you can to secure the network as much as possible. Something we touch on and we get into even much deeper in, say, the design course as opposed to the wireless core is designing for different environments. And you get into the non-traditional carpeted office environment, you get into some industrial, or you're mixing some OT and ICS systems, or just a lot of legacy systems and warehousing, manufacturing. Your limitations are going to be based on what your clients are. And if your clients can't move there, so we touch a lot on how do you design from a client-first perspective, because that ultimately is the most critical element. It's very much with wireless, it's very much reversed from what's my fastest switching environment that I can put in from a wired perspective, because good luck finding a device that doesn't at least do gig. at this point on wired port. But, so you kind of do a infrastructure first design. Wireless, you really have to flip it on its head, and it's a client first. What are my clients capable of doing? What am I trying to have my clients do? What kind of performance do I need to get, or what's their role in my overall operation? And then do the best thing we can from a performance and a security around those clients. And that's what really drives a lot of the intricacies around wireless deployments, especially when you get to the enterprise, and why it's not just, well, I can set up in my home, and instead of doing 1 or 2 access points, I'm doing 50. Now, it's obviously very, very, very different than that.
Yeah, guys, you can see I haven't done the design course yet, so I'm going to recommend 2.4 gigahertz everywhere, right?
No.
I was going to say, guys, you need to tell me why it's a bad idea. Don't be so silent.
Yeah. Again, it's the you have, from a design perspective, we have 3 frequency ranges to work with. We've got our 2.4, we have our 5, and we have our 6 gig. Even though certain regulatory domains, you have a wider swath of 6 gig to work with than you do in others. You want to get your optimum client performance. Again, what are your clients capable of doing? You want to get the most free space, if you will, least amount of contention, as your, depending on your environment. Again, if you have neighbors or multi-tenant, multi-story building, you need to be able to work around what everyone else is doing. You have to be a good neighbor. And as you go up in frequency range, not only do you avoid a lot of interference, allows you to scale out the number of access points you can use broader channels, so you can actually get more throughput per client within that frequency range you're using. A lot of aspects that come up, and that's why it's really important to do a deep dive into design and really understand. There's the understanding what the standards are and what the technology is capable of, but then there's, what does it really look like when I'm deploying it, and how do I optimize it? How do I get the most out of what I'm doing? And we find with a lot of customers, real world, a lot of it is they can go in and adjust and really optimize what they have and use the features and capabilities that they're not using today. That's part of the solution. Maybe it's something that was enabled with a newer version of wireless controller code, new capabilities came on, optimize the networks that are there. And again, that's also something that you learn through the courses of, how do I get the most out of what I already have? It's not just about installing more on top of it.
We touched about a little earlier the whole fact that you can learn wireless and how it works, and then there's kind of the secondary of how do you implement it on different systems, right? And we see a lot of professionals out there who might have administered wireless LAN controllers all their life. Now they're being asked to do a hybrid, right? Today we have wireless LAN controllers that connect to the Meraki cloud and show visibility, or you have, your headquarters is on a traditional controller-based design, because that's how your ACLs and your ports are set up, and all your branch offices are Meraki. So learning how to take that and implement it across one stack, but multiple or even kind of swath of stacks, right, is one of the things we're seeing people getting asked to do, and why we encourage people to do courses like this, right, to understand, how do I take these best practices from a design perspective and get them implemented to get the same results, even though the knobs and the config looks a little different, right? Get the same kind of results.
Okay, guys, so you've kind of highlighted that I need training, right? So I don't understand how things work. So what do I do? Are there Cisco Pressbooks? Is it like Cisco U? How do I get trained so I can prepare for the exam?
Yep. All of the courses are available through Cisco U. They will also be available through instructor-led training for people that prefer the in-class learning environment. But we're definitely, as with all of our new training, the emphasis is on making content available through Cisco U. We understand people's schedules are tight. They need to learn. They may want to learn things in a slightly different order. Something's mission critical for them to really understand now, versus what they have time for to work on next week. So that flexibility of through the e-learning availability. Labs are going to be online. So again, the flexibility as to how labs can be taken by our students. So really, Cisco U as first and foremost, e-learning. But that instructor-led training is something that will also be available once the course is released.
So Nick, real world stuff, man. When is Wi-Fi 8 coming?
Come on, we just got
I'm giving you a hard
7.
time. No, I'm just kidding.
Soon, no, it's gonna be a little while, but I think.
Go on.
No, I was just gonna say we kind of internally joke that the speed of Wi-Fi generations has really ramped. So We always say focus on what's out there right now.
I'm just winding you up. I mean, I'm hoping you've got a demo, right? Because you're not part of learning. You like in the business unit, seeing the real world stuff that's getting deployed all the time. And I love it when we have like the guys are in, at the coal face, if you like, and then the training guys as well. So I believe you got a demo where you can show something cool?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm just going to show is the first kind of experience you're going to see with any Wi-Fi 7 access point. We wanted to show this because this is, we've changed things a little bit. So if you've been dealing with, Cisco access points, Windows Wave 2, the unboxing experience and what happens when you plug in has changed a little bit to achieve some of the things we talked about a little earlier. So there's no regulatory domains, there's no Meraki, there's no Catalyst. I'm going to show you how that works. Quick little shout out, by the way, we also drastically simplified licensing. I'm not going to talk more about licensing because I'm not a licensing guy, but we now just have one license that works across Meraki stack and kind of the on-prem stack. So
that's good
just
news.
For those of you out there who always loves a good licensing question, just wanted to give a quick shout out. So what I want to get started off with is actually showing the deployment guide, because apart from working a lot with learning on developing the content of what we believe learners should know, as they become wireless professionals, we also take pretty great pride in having up-to-date documentation out there, deployment guides, right? How can you learn this? If you don't have access to a lab right now, where can you go read about this? And, if you go to cisco.com/go/guapodg, you'll get to the deployment guide. And a lot of what I'm showing here is actually documented really well here. But if we scroll down, and I'm just going to jump directly to a screenshot from that page, this is how a modern Cisco wireless access point boots. It boots up when you take it right out of the box. And then you see that little question mark there, David?
Yeah.
That's should I become a controller mode access, or should I become a Meraki mode access?
I like that.
So what I'm going to show is kind of what that looks like and how you can move. So you're a learner in a lab environment. How can you move between the different environments? So the first thing I'm going to show is I'm going to drop right into a Meraki dashboard here.
Just sorry to interrupt. You said you can move back again, right? So if you're studying, you can do a bit of Meraki, do enterprise, go back and so forth, right?
Absolutely. So and to kind of give you the complete picture, in Wi-Fi 6E, you could go from controllers to Meraki yourself, but from Meraki to controller, you had to call the Meraki support and say, would you please move my access point? It's a fast thing, and it's a 1-minute call and it'll do it for you. However, in Wi-Fi 7, we've actually unlocked this capability going from Meraki to controller for the end user. So if we drop into a Meraki dashboard, which should be familiar to everybody, and I'll zoom in a little bit, I just so happen to have a Wi-Fi 7 access point right here. And one of the new capabilities is if you click this little checkbox here, you have write permissions to this network, you will see this little migrate to WLC button here. If you click this, right, you can hit migrate access point, and the access point will move from the Meraki dashboard onto, let's say, an on-prem controller. Now, when I say move on to an on-prem controller, all the stuff you know today from your discovery, your option 43s, your DNSs, all that, that's still valid. The moment you hit migrate, all of that process kicks off. So you don't have to relearn everything. But this is just a super easy way of even onboarding access points, right? You can claim them into the dashboard, and you can later then just migrate them over. So you know what? I'm just going to go do this, hit migrate here. So migration successfully initiated, and we'll jump over to the controller and see it kind of land on a controller in just a moment. Now, whilst this is kind of going on, we got rid of regulatory domains. So the question is, of course, how do you know what country you're allowed to operate in? The cool thing is, for Meraki dashboard customers, there's no change, right? You're connected to the cloud, we'll figure that out. However, if you're using the access points on the controller, there's a few different ways we can determine the country code. And I think this is relevant for people to kind of understand here, and we'll just give a quick demo of what that looks like. There are basically 4 ways, and this is also in our deployment guide. If you have a GPS on the access point, why not use that, right? Instead of having a baked-in regulatory domain, if you're in the UK, use GPS. We'll tell you in the UK, and you'll operate as if you're in the UK. If you're in a brownfield environment, so you have existing wireless access points out there, a new Wi-Fi 7 access point will boot up and just learn from the access points around it that are on the same controller. When you go from the Meraki dashboard, so that's the light blue option here, what I just did, we actually take the country code which the IAP was operating and bring that over. So we have like super lightweight provisioning where you can just use the cloud to install the country codes. And finally, we do have what we call the RAF. I'm not going to go too much into that, but there is an offline option for those fully air-gapped, I'm in a submarine or in a cave somewhere, DOD-like environments. We do have an offline version, so we took care of that, right? So we have a few different ways of doing that. And actually, if I jump over to my wireless LAN controller here, so I have a bunch of access points. You see a number of different models, but for my Wi-Fi 7 models here, you'll see regulatory domain resolution. So this access point, for example, learned its country code through the GPS. And by the way, this only happens on the first boot. You don't have to relearn it every time you boot. Once an access point is in a country, we won't move off it unless you want it to. So you can reset this, right? Similar, you can see another access point here called Kangaroo. It says install via Meraki dashboard. So this is a access point that lives on the Meraki dashboard. We moved it over. We retain the country code. Now it's installed via dashboard. And actually, we even have proximity. So these are access points that booted up. Again, no regulatory domain, but learned from the existing. And this can be existing access points. Wi-Fi 6, for example, Cisco access points, -B or -E will learn the country code from those. So just to conclude this, see if another access point has joined yet. But what I also do want to mention, and this is something I know a lot of people are excited about. In the past, if your country code's on the controller didn't match your AP country code, we wouldn't even let the APs join. We do that now. So you might even see what we call a -UN, which means, hey, the access point doesn't have a country code, but it's on the controller. It's ready to get a code. And here, I believe this is actually the access point here that just joined over from the Meraki dashboard and joined our controller. So there are tons of details. And of course, this is the kind of stuff that's going to get covered in our courses as we develop it, right? And the deployment guide that I just shouted out, has all the gory details, all the options 43, the hex options, all the different ways you can make this work for you. So yeah, just a little quick demo of some of the new content coming, the new way you deal with Cisco access points. And to summarize it is a lot has changed, but actively, if you don't do anything, it'll still work. Still join the controls, still join the Meraki dashboard.
Yeah, so guys, I need to push you on this because I know some people might not be part of Cisco U or be able to go to like in-person training. Are there any books or like any kind of resources out there if someone had to like self-study this?
From my end, on top of course, like official curriculum, right? And
yeah,
absolutely Cisco U, use it a bunch. One of the books I recommend is the Understanding and Troubleshooting Catalyst 9800, I believe it's called, written by distinguished engineers from the business unit, escalation engineers, TAC folks. Like that is the real in-depth of how a 9800 controller works and how you debug that. So once you start, peering into CCIE level, that's a really good resource. And then of course, the deployment guides on cisco.com, right? For the newer stuff, as you're pushing the boundaries and learning the newer stuff. And, what is new today is part of, core fundamentals in a year or two. So definitely well spent time there. But I'd say that the deployment guides and book is a good way to enhance your knowledge as you're going towards the expert level.
Yeah, Cisco, I did my CCIE many, many years ago. And it's what I've always loved about Cisco is the documentation is solid, right? So if I'm self-studying, there's a lot of documentation that I can find that I could self-study.
Absolutely. And there's a ton of very passionate people within, our CX or TAC organization that put out assigned documents or hey, I learned something about QoS. Let me go write a long document with really in-depth details, right? And that just kind of happens organically as well as a need is seen from these, passionate people within the organization. So absolutely, there's a ton of good stuff out there.
You're also working on Cisco U to have a lot of tutorial content around wireless LANs, and that's on the free side of Cisco U. So simply, a cisco.com username will get you there. We're working on moving a lot of that over tutorials, and a lot of the tutorials, intentionally are aligning to topics within the blueprint, where it makes sense to have a deeper dive around certain topics. So even if someone doesn't take the formal course, you can still put together combination, as Nick said, the excellent documentation we have online with a mix of some of the tutorials and other pieces that are available. You can put together a lot of very good studying resources. WLSCOR is brand new. So as far as there being a Cisco Press book, that will, there'll be that normal little bit of a lag whenever there's a new course and before something's released. And we, we'll obviously follow up as to what, where that's happening and make sure everybody knows as our continued announcements around what we're doing with the training and the exams, making sure everyone knows all the resources that are available, paid and otherwise.
If people haven't used the Cisco U labs in the past few years, and it has become really good. And I'm saying that as somebody who's not, in the Cisco U team, but what it can spin up in terms of virtual infrastructure, what you get access to. I think if you haven't touched the learning experience in the last, keep me honest, 3 years or something, you'll see a 0 to 1 change in the lab ability you get and what actually gets spun up for you. So that environment has become really, really good.
Okay, I'm alone, right? I don't want to study alone. Are there any sort of groups I can join? Does Cisco have some groups online that I can join to ask questions and, just perhaps reach out to you guys? How do I get help? If I'm studying, but I'm struggling with something.
Yeah, with this within the Learning with Cisco, the Cisco learning communities, is a great resource. We have people from the business units, from Learning with Cisco, field engineers that are all extremely active within the learning communities. And I must say that wireless is one of the more active learning communities. So any trouble anyone's having around trying to understand a topic, whether it's a real world deployment question or, hey, I'm trying to get a better technical understanding of how this works, amazing resource. And it's a global community. So really 24/7, you'll be able to get up there and start making connections with people. And so the level of resources and the knowledge that are there is truly incredible.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, I always want to mention that, right? Because those groups are amazing.
I just want to add to the communities part that Andrew just mentioned. So communities are really great. Please do join them. And there's a lot of questions answered. There's SMEs available over there who can answer your questions as they come up. If you go to CLN, there is also video tutorials and stuff that our team creates. I would recommend those as well. Please look at them. There's a lot of Cisco U tutorials that are freely available, so you don't even need to have a subscription for that, which you can go and see for free. There's a lot of them freely available. I highly recommend looking at those as well as you prepare for your exams and certifications.
And I consider one more note on the learning communities. I can say personally, being involved in working on creating the tutorials that we put to Cisco U, if there are topics that people are really interested in, put them on Cisco Learning Network and say, hey guys, I would really appreciate a tutorial around this. And it's something that if we find, there's a couple people are really interested, hey, this is an area that maybe we're overlooking a little bit, or the documentation maybe a little bit too technical. What does it really look like real world? Or in some cases, it's just it'd be really nice to see how this works. Put it into the learning community, and maybe something someone's already running in their lab and can easily post a quick little video snippet on, or we can do a more formal tutorial around it. Again, the learning communities is a very active community, very supportive, and it's all about everyone succeeding, whether you're studying or deploying or just learning. It's a great place for everyone just to, kind of crowdsource some ideas.
Guys, really want to thank you for sharing. It's great to see that we have a CCNP wireless certification back again. I remember years ago there was a cert like that. So I'm really glad to see that this is here again, because Wi-Fi is so important in today's world. Have you guys got any closing thoughts, any sort of things that you want to share for people who are watching?
I just want to start by saying that this is something that we are doing for the community. It has come back from the community feedback. Please continue with that feedback for us. It's really important for us to have that feedback. And then we go ahead and implement all these kind of changes, like in reintroducing the wireless certification at the professional level. I would highly recommend looking at the Cert roadmap page, all the updates, all the blueprints, everything you need to know about the new program is on that Cert page. There's a lot of links underneath this video, which you can look at for preparations and for looking at all the new blueprints that are available. So happy studies, and I wish you best of luck for the...
Well, David, first, thanks very much for letting us come and talk to you and talk to all of your viewers. Really appreciate it. I've been doing Wi-Fi deployments myself for over 25 years. So to see us kind of relaunching and having this much deeper emphasis around dedicated wireless track, I'm really excited to be part of doing it. I think it's something that has been needed, the continued evolution of the technology and how even more critical Wi-Fi is to everybody. I think it's just a great opportunity. We're putting some great information out there. There's some great training and exams coming. And just anyone who's involved in the community, just, let us know what we're doing well. And honestly, let us know what we're not doing well. Because it's all about making ultimately our learners and our customers successful, deploying their wireless security, their Cisco wireless. So I appreciate the time to be able to come out and talk with you.
Yeah. And I'd just say, I can only echo, let us know what we're doing well. Let us know what we're not doing well. Some of us are watch the YouTube video and we're going to read it in the comments, right? Like we really appreciate the feedback. We do see it. And then just finally, from a learning perspective, stay curious and lab it out. If something is, wondering, get it labbed out. You're probably going to learn 10 things you didn't know you're going to learn, but that's kind of my biggest thought here. Lab it out and see what happens.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for sharing. Really appreciate you making the time. I'm really glad to see the cert. For everyone who's watching, please put your comments below, ask questions. Then I can get these wonderful guys back again to answer some of your questions if you've got them. So put them below, join the community, have a look at the blueprints. I've put a bunch of links below. Let me know if we missed anything. Guys, thanks so much.